All right, we are live. It's good to be live again.
Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inspirational Bar Podcast. Podcast created to inspire you to grow, to do more, to be more successful, and to better and more successful bartenders and people in life. And like every Wednesday or every week, I try to bring an amazing, inspiring people who achieved a great success in bartending in hospitality industry. And today it's no exception. I have very special person. I'm very excited to hear his story because uh, I personally was never much a flair bartender, but I was always admiring people who do that, and I was always watching those shows, and it was really inspirational. And today I have a very special guest. He is not just a bartender, not just a flair bartender. He's one of the leaders of flair bartending. He's world champion in flair bartending, and I believe that most of you already know this person. And today you will know him even more because he will share his inspirational stories. And I'm very excited to present you Tom Dyer. Hi, Tom.
Hey, I has this. Hey, yeah, this camera's kind of backwards, huh? It's weird, but it's good. Thank
Yeah,
you very
yeah,
much.
it's really, I never noticed that.
Yeah, we're seeing ourselves the way everybody else sees us, rather than in the mirror. But
Okay.
thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. I know that we've tried. Well, we discussed a little while ago about
Yeah,
doing this, so thank you for your patience with me.
it's no problem. It's always worth to be patient and wait for special people because for to hear their stories because I understand that life is busy and especially successful people are busy in their lives, and it's not so easy to get their time. So I'm really grateful for you that you found the time for this hour, for this inspirational bar podcast to share your story. As I told, this podcast is created to inspire people, and because I know myself, even when this pandemic happened, we talked to you before this a bit about pandemic. I was also down at some points or some moments in that, and you need that inspiration from people who achieved a great success in the industry you are in, because that's more closer to you. So I'm really excited, and I would like to hear and share your story, Tom. So I would like to hear, uh, actually, all your story. How did you got into bartending? And into flair bartending, and how everything went to the point you are today, to the point where you became world champion, and to the point where and what you're doing today. How did that happen? How was the journey? When did you start it? Why? How?
A long, long time ago. No. I mean, obviously, at any point, just butt in if you have any questions. But it started for me when I was around 16. I
Okay.
worked in a restaurant, which the name back then was called Bennigan's. Excuse me. And when I was serving tables, or cleaning tables and bringing out food, and so I was working in the industry of hospitality and restaurants. And
Mhm.
then when I became 18, they said, "Do you want to be a waiter or do you want to be a bartender?" And I thought bartenders get the chicks, so I want to be a bartender.
Have you seen the
Um,
movie Cocktail at that time already, or not yet?
I can't remember if I'd seen it. I knew of it, but I'm not sure if my parents had actually allowed me to watch the movie at all. Um,
Okay.
but I had seen it very shortly after I became a bartender. But I didn't know about flair. I didn't know that I wanted to be a bartender or anything like this. I was working towards the normal thing that everybody was doing in their life of going to school, then going towards university, and then whatever. I was
Mhm.
following the I don't know the normal.
Society's path. Society.
Sorry,
I could call it society's path. Like,
society's part
yeah.
exactly. And so I become a bartender at this restaurant, which it changed from a Bennigan's to called Jefferson's. So similar theme, kind of like TGI Fridays style, but a little bit more, let's say, upper class. But it wasn't. It tried to be, but it was just different design, basically.
Okay.
And then while I was working there, my bar manager at the time, his name was Jody Myers. he said about a competition which was happening at the Roadhouse Grand
Oh,
Finals,
yes.
flair bartending competition, because he'd been showing me a couple of flair tricks whilst I was working on the bar, and I'd learned a handstand. And I wasn't majorly interested. It wasn't like I was hooked. And actually, before that, I had been shown a couple of flair tricks because I was around the industry of bartending and restaurants and things like this. So people had shown me stuff, and I was, oh, that's pretty cool. Anyway, I went to see the grand finals at Roadhouse, and we arrived at when the doors opened.
What
wasn't
year?
really
What year was
old
that? What year was that?
That was the November 2000, so 20
2000.
years ago,
Oh, okay.
a
Okay.
long time ago. And I started flaring. I started trying to flare July 2000.
Okay.
So I've just gone over 20 years in July this year.
Oh my God. So long.
But yeah, I saw the competition. I saw people like Nicholas St. John, Neil Garner, Francesco Leone, a lot of names which people may not know these days, but they were legends and are legends in the flair bartending world way back when. And after I saw this, I was hooked. I wanted to practice more, and I was just like any normal young budding flair bartender now. All I wanted to do was throw bottles around. I wanted to be the cool guy on stage, winning that. I wanted to win that competition.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
It just kind of went from there. And as what happened was, I started to focus too much on my flair, and then a few people told me. One guy who stood out. A guy called Amit Sood, who's still in the industry. He's done some stuff with Ace Bar Events and World WFA and Shaker Bar School and a lot of other brands. And he said, look, you need to make sure you're a good bartender first and a flair bartender second. And it's words that I stand by today. So during that time, this was, I suppose, early 2001, I left working at Jefferson's to go and get a job at TGI Fridays because back then TGI Fridays was the place where you go and get good training, where you go and cut your teeth, as we say in English, to up your skills as a flair bartender or as a bartender. And there I learned cocktails, I learned service, upselling, free pouring. I learned to become a decent bartender. I wasn't amazing by any stretch of the truth, but I was decent.
Yeah.
And from then on in, I focused on making sure that my bartending skill was at as the highest quality that I can give. So, and my flair skill was always secondary to that, but I was always still practicing. I mean, the rest, as we say, is history. But as things progressed, I had new opportunities come my way. I left TGI Fridays and I started working in a bar. It was a nightclub, but we weren't allowed to call it a nightclub for licensing purposes. We had to call it a restaurant with late night music and dance. If the authorities came in, we were a restaurant with late night music and dance. We were a nightclub that served French fries so that we could stay open until 2 o'clock in the morning.
It's like now some bars are doing that. I heard in Miami, you can't be open if you are a bar. Now I think you can again, but it was like long time ago. So we started to sell some hot dogs, to be a restaurant.
Exactly.
Everything is repeating itself.
The work history is exactly. But from there, I got into the London scene a lot more because I grew up just on the outskirts of London. But in there, I got into the London scene a bit more. I started to compete at the Roadhouse competition. I actually tried to get a job at Roadhouse before I got this job in London. A place, the nightclub was called Cherry Jam. Sadly, it's not around anymore. I tried to get a job at Roadhouse and they turned me down. They said, you're not good enough. But maybe you should enter our competition, they said. So that was the bar manager at the time. His name was Chris Spencer. And whenever I see him these days, because I still bump into him sometimes, I say, thank you very much for not giving me the job at Roadhouse. Because it would have gone one of two ways. I would have either walked off the bar crying and never wanted to bartend before in my life, or I would have possibly got the job there and completely forgot about doing any kind of flair or practicing flair or anything like this. So it was a key moment for me to not work at Roadhouse, so that I got pushed to practice more, to flare more, to go to the Roadhouse and enter the competition. And I started entering the competition every month, every month,
Mhm.
every month, every month, every month. And my first competition was September 2001, where I probably placed last, I would imagine. I was absolutely terrible. And so much, I was so terrible that the month after, in October, I think I competed in October, yeah, they put me on first. So the ranking of the order of when you go on, first is means you're the shittest, basically, and last on means you're the best, there or thereabouts. So I vowed to myself to never have to go on first again. So I practiced hard, and by August 2002, I won my first competition, which was the UK Championships.
Okay, good.
Um, Thank you. And then from then on, after I won that, it was kind of like a rocket up my arse, and I started to travel. I competed a lot more, and as years go on, you know when your face or your name is in the forefront of what is happening in your industry, you get different opportunities. And without me knowing what to do, I took these opportunities. I ran with them. I took them. I'm always been somebody who wanted to keep myself busy and try and grow myself as best as I could. And I just grabbed each opportunity, and I got the opportunity to go and compete and work in great places, perform shows in different places. I started to give trainings, and it just kind of developed from there, really, until now.
Okay, have you ever counted how many competitions have you entered totally, more or less?
I did have it written down, and sorry if you can hear noise in the background. They've decided to start doing gardening
Yeah,
outside.
I don't hear nothing. I don't know if probably it's okay. I can hear you very well, so that's important because
Well, the amount of competitions is over 300. I
whoa.
think it was about 350, somewhere between 300 and 350.
Okay,
Um, I used to have a spreadsheet with all the competitions on it,
okay.
but I lost, I've still
300.
got it somewhere. And I figured out my average on first, second, third, fourth, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and then other meaning if I was seventh and below.
Okay.
My on average, I think my best was second overall.
Uh,
Basically, I won a third of my competitions. It was something like this.
you
It was about 80 odd competitions. So it's about 300 competitions, because I won, I think, 82 competitions in total. And then second place, I think I got about 80 second places. And then third places was a bit lower. And then the numbers went down from there, basically.
Wow, but 300, that's I mean, that's a lot, a lot. Wow. I was counting my competitions doing in mixology because I never did flair bartending, just learned some moves. So it looked that I did a lot. I mean, I did 30 something, no, something 30. But when you said yours, so it's like, wow.
I was very lucky to have Roadhouse there, because Roadhouse, they had a competition every month.
Yeah,
So for 10 years, I mean, I didn't compete every single month, but for 10 years I could compete every month if I wanted. So that's 300 competitions alone. I could have done.
but technically, yeah, if you get even in all of them, so it's just around 100 competitions. So you still did more than 200 somewhere else. Well, that's great. That's amazing. That's mind blowing. I was like thinking, wow, that's great, man. That's wow. That's already an achievement, I could say. That's wow. That's so inspirational. And Tom, how many competitions did it take for you to win? Just to break that ice, let's say. How many did it take for you when you go and you lose, and finally you get in top, let's say, first place?
I can tell you the journey from first competition to first place. And first
Okay.
competition was last. I placed probably, I didn't actually check, but probably last. Second, third, hang on, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. From one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, seven competitions, I got a little bit better each month.
Mm-hmm.
And this was all at Roadhouse. Roadhouse, for those who don't know, was a world famous
Flair,
competition,
flair.
nightclub and bar in central London. I got a little bit better each time. And then that was April 2003. And then May 2004, I placed in the top final six for the
Mm-hmm.
first time. And I placed fourth. June, May, June, July, it was fourth, fourth, and fourth. I couldn't make top three. I kept messing it up. And then it was August 2002, sorry, yeah, where I got my first. So it was basically a year until I won my first competition.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a lot of people these days who have been competing for 3 years or more or whatever and still struggling to win their first competition.
Mm-hmm.
But I think back when I started, it was much easier to get into the competition scene. The level of flair was much lower, and I had Roadhouse nearby, so it was much easier to kind of reach the high level more
Mm-hmm.
quickly than what it is now. Now to reach the top level, it takes a good few years to get up there. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was. I was practicing a hell of a lot though for that year. I mean, my day was I'd wake up, get out of bed, literally still wiping my eyes. This was during summer because wintertime I couldn't practice much. Wiping my eyes, I'd walk downstairs, go into the garden, and start throwing bottles around before I did anything. And I did
Wow.
that for as long as I could, and then I had to stop to go to the toilet or eat.
Eat, yeah.
That's all I stopped for. That's all I stopped. I would until my stomach was rumbling to have food. I would stop. I would eat a massive bowl of pasta, maybe watch a little bit of television, and then go and practice again.
So
So
how many hours a day did you have you practice? Like 12,
a
14
day
a day? Yeah.
back then it was between 8 to 10 hours a day, easy.
Wow. Wow, that's like full-time job.
Yeah.
Full-time job.
There's this. I think it was Matthew Gladwell, a writer. I could have that wrong. Or Matthew Side, or a famous author talks about the 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as talent. There's only practice.
Yeah.
So people say you're very talented. I said there's no such thing as talent. It's practice. Skateboarders, runners, whatever they do, you're not talented. You just practice to get better. Some people have a different body shape and a different culture to help them get better at certain things. So, for example, Kenyan runners are fantastic at running because their body structure and their lung capacity and everything else is built in such a way to make them good at running.
True.
But when it comes to flair, it's just the skill of hand-eye coordination and being able to see and understand what you're doing. And that first year, I mean, I must have clocked up a few thousand hours, I would imagine, just in the first year, which pushed me very, very high. I see people these days and they're like, how can I get better? I'm like, practice. I said, how much do you practice a day? They said, I practice 2 or 3 times a week for a few hours a day. It's not enough.
Yeah, you can get the momentum.
Exactly. As you said, it was a full-time job. And that's hard for people to accept. But I took it to the full extreme of wanting to compete and do competitions and do everything else. It's not for everybody, and not everybody's going to be able to do that or want to do that. And I completely understand that. But with anything, whether you're making cocktails, whether you're studying mixology, techniques, whatever you're doing, if you treat it as something that you need to do each day, whether it's free pouring or some simple craft flair moves, if you dedicate 1 hour per day, in a year's time, you're going to see yourself. If you video yourself the first year and then a year later, you'll see the improvements will be exponential. But people don't want to put into practice these days. That's the only problem.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true what you're saying about 10,000 hours, because when those 10,000 hours or all your movements, I understand that, because it's the same from when I stand and work behind the bar now, and I can see how I'm moving. Sometimes, you try to see yourself from a side, and you see that this is all practice. You just know where to take something, and your hands doing everything itself. Let's say like that, And it came with experience, with more you make, and that's what you're saying. It's so really, it's a very great inspirational conversation today, because that's what I want to get inspired myself and show others that this success doesn't come like that, like that. Like you say, there's no such thing as talent. Of course, it might be some person is a bit more forwarded to one thing than other person, but 10,000 hours really is an equalizer for everything. And the one who did 10,000 hours and faster, do them faster, because if it's that's more successful. That's true. Wow, that's so I mean, it's so mind-blowing to listen to you, like, about so much work that you put in, and it's no doubt that you are so successful there, and then that's where success comes from. And Tom, so what was the most how is that most dangerous goal, maybe let's say like that, trauma that you got from practicing? Because I bet you got some bottles broken in your head or somewhere. I know, I heard stories that people do, so I believe you got a lot.
Well, funny you should ask. Is something which I was always extremely lucky with. I don't know whether I had faster reactions than others, or I wasn't trying to do as difficult moves. But for example, I'll get to my cuts and things like this. But if you ask Tomek Marek and Marek Podluzny at the beginning of their careers, they had a competition to see who had more stitches from all the cuts that they had. You had Nicholas St. John. He cut a tendon. Alex Searle, a friend of mine, he cut a tendon. Vitaly Kolpin, if you see his hands, he's got the scars on the back of his hands. Many people have really injured themselves badly, but I've been extremely lucky. I've got a scar on the back of this finger.
Okay, I see something. Yeah, I see something.
You might be able to see it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do.
And that was after work one time, and we had three empty bottles of cheap vodka, which we were using at work. And someone said, "Oh, do a bit of flair. It's 3 bottles." So I was flaring, and I didn't have a pour spout, and I didn't have tape on the bottles. And I'd done my 3-bottle routine for everybody at work. They're like, "Oh, nice job." And I had 2 bottles in my hand, and I threw one up from behind my back to catch it in here. And as I did that, all the necks collided, smashed, and cut my finger open. On one of the simplest moves for me back then, I lose concentration and slice my finger. And from then on, whenever anyone said about putting tape on the bottles, so when you're doing competitions, there was always this discussion about putting tape. I always said, "Look, I've got the proof. If I had tape on those bottles, I wouldn't have cut myself here." But that's the one that stands out the most. But I've got 2 scars on the palm. You probably can't see them. There's one.
Literally.
There's one there. Yeah, you can't see it on this camera, but
difficult to see. But something is there. Okay, so what's the story?
But these ones I don't remember. No idea. But and also I used to get it on the backs of my feet. So down here, there's no scars there.
Really? So how did the bottle fall down and break and hit, or how did it happen?
Because I used to practice without shoes and socks on, and what used to happen. So if this was my shaker, for example, and this was my foot, the back of my foot, the
Oh yeah.
shaker used to come down onto the back of my heel like this.
Oh
So when I used
shit.
to drop it, it used to hit it like that. So I used to get a lot of that in the back of my feet. I used to hit my toes a lot. The big one when I was starting was hitting the collarbones, because we used to
Okay.
put bottles up behind our head and you miss and you hit your collarbone. I also in the hips, the hip bone we used to hit all the time. And I am convinced actually that in one elbow or the other one, that there's a chipped piece of bone which is loose. I'm
Ah,
convinced that there's something loose in one of them, because when you're practicing to do the elbow stool, when you miss hit it, you hit that bone, and sometimes you go, you're out for 10 minutes because the pain is too much.
oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, but I have been super lucky with all of my injuries, with any accidents. I haven't injured anybody else. I've had cuts and scrapes, but nothing major. Fortunately and unfortunately for today's podcast.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's okay. It's better not to have, dangerous, dangerous uh, hits. Okay, Tom. Now let's talk a little bit about other bartenders. I wanted to ask you, what, in your opinion, separates a good bartender from a great bartender? I'm not talking about bad bartenders. Usually, it's easy to spot, or let's say to say that this bartender is bad. Let's say like that. But what in your mind separates the good one from a great one? I know one thing is already practice. I mean, not just in flair bartending. You can answer it taking everything in consideration, also mixology, just a bartender itself. So what separates? What do you think, in your opinion?
Just before I answer that, I think what you said is correct. I mean, I get asked a lot about flair bartending, but I do try and answer my questions in the best way to do with bartending as well, because I was a bartender for several years. But in my opinion, what makes a great bartender is modesty. And what I mean by that is there's many bartenders out there who are really good at what they do, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't find them great because they think they're amazing.
Okay.
And we all have a certain level of arrogance, I believe, as bartenders, because we're constantly on show, we're constantly, serving people and trying to make people happy. You can get a lot of praise from guests and members of the public and whatever it is. So there is a certain level of arrogance, I do believe, that every bartender has, and there's a lot which has it a lot more than others. But if you have modesty and you're humble with what you're doing, you're more open to learning more, to practicing more, to training more, and to believing that you don't know everything. And to believe that you don't know everything is only going to push you to learn more about what you do and more what you can be as a bartender. So, for example, when I left my first job and I went to work at TGI Fridays, I mean, I was an arrogant little shit back then.
I
I
think
was,
we all crossed that
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
in some
I was,
period of
I
career.
was, a, I was a, what we say, a see you next Tuesday. But I was still pretty humble. People call me the nice guy for their bartending well, but I still thought I knew a lot of stuff. But I wanted to improve myself. I wanted to learn how to upsell, how to serve customers correctly, how to serve multiple orders and things like this. And that was just simply the techniques of being a good bartender. Now I've sort of left the flair competition circuit. I realized that my knowledge as in bartending, in just general knowledge, I suppose, as it is, isn't as good as a lot of people out there. So I need to practice that. I need to hone my skills better on that. And I'm not gonna lie to people and say that I know everything there is about bartending and ask me which is the best vodkas and blah 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 blah. I've got to be modest enough within myself to understand what I know and what I don't know and where I can improve. And I think that will make each person a much better bartender, to then become a great bartender. I mean, to become a great bartender, and that takes a speed of service, a certain level of knowledge, a certain amount of being a people's person, talking skills, maybe a little bit of flair skills, like that touch of entertainment when you're behind the bar. That will all come, I believe, if you have a certain level of modesty about what you're doing and how you're learning. Because if you have that modesty, you'll want to improve on every aspect you can do or you can be as a bartender to reach the level of greatness.
All right, great answer. Thank you very much. And to the same topic, what do you think is the difference between the, let's say, between being in now about the competitions, to be in top 3, because I believe that top 1 is sometimes also a bit of luck, but to get into top 3, it's definitely work or something what could be, achieved without luck. So of course, again, I understand that you will say the work and practice, that's definitely, but besides that, what else do you think is important? What separates people from who always get into top 3 and those who don't get into top 3, let's say?
Wow. It's a really tough one to answer.
What do you notice through your career, through your years in career? What is just what you think might be, what you personally think,
I think you have to have a certain level of understanding of what you're going to be doing. I talk about that sort of modesty and that arrogance once again. You have to, for me, I never knew how good I was, or I never know how good or bad my flair is. I just kind of understood if I do this much, then I'm going to reach that top 3. But what I always tried to do with every routine that I was performing was to bring something new. And I think this goes for any bartending competition, whether it's a mixology or a cocktail competition or a flair bartending competition or whatever it may be. You want to stand out. So I suppose standing out. So you want to stand out amongst the rest. So if you're going there and doing what you think you need to do to get to the top 3, you're not doing the right thing, because you're just going to stay in that bubble of the 80% of people who do exactly the same as what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's cocktails, moves, techniques, sequence, or whatever it may be. Let's talk about flair. There's 80% of the flair bartending world, maybe a bit more, which basically do a lot of the same stuff. And they're not standing out enough. They're not being creative and original enough to stand out above the rest. If you want to reach the top 3, you've got to bring something different. You've got to show people what it is that you love about being on stage, what you love in flair bartending or in whatever competition you're doing, and showcase that. So, for example, I'll give you a story. There's a famous flair bartender called Tim Flippy Morris, which probably a lot of people know.
Yeah.
And he was doing a competition and he was practicing his 3 bottles routine. And I think it was his dad. He was getting angry practicing 3-bottle chuggle because he couldn't do it. And I think it was his dad that came in and said, well, what's up? He said, well, I can't do this 3-bottle sequence for the competition. He said, well, don't do it then. If it's making you so angry, don't do it. Because when you get up on stage, you're just going to feel that anger once again. So he's like, that's a very good point. Why should I bother doing this? So he focused on doing what he could do as a flair bartender and doing that. And that came through in his entertainment and his skill level. He performed what he loved to do the most. And I took that idea myself for my last ever routine, which was a Roadhouse, obviously. And I wanted to do what I love to do. I'm not going to go into that routine, but I did what I love to do, and that shone through as a competitor, because when you're doing what you love to do and you're not doing what you think you need to do, the entertainment factor will shine through, and you will stand out a lot more to the judges and everybody else in the audience because you're doing something different. So,
that's a very great point.
So just backtrack a little bit. So to reach those top three, I believe you have to stand out. You have to be creative in whatever you're doing.
Mhm.
And I mean, dedication and practice, as you said, but there's you can be dedicated and put in a lot of practice, but not in the right way. It's a good thing to sort of plan your practice and make sure you're improving yourself when you're practicing and not just flitting around doing cool. And then also planning your routine on stage and planning what you're going to do is so important. And then finally, for me, it was always about the music. The music is, and I try and explain to people who come and practice at our school, I'm like, you have 5 minutes on stage to control that whole venue. Just like a DJ has an hour or 2 hours or however long to control the people,
Yeah.
if they're a good DJ, they'll control the people 100% well because they know how to balance the music and mix it and make it amazing. You've got 5 minutes. So during that 5 minutes, you've got a few tools at your disposal to entertain, to gain the points, to have fun, to enjoy yourself, to do everything else. So think about what can you do or what would you like to see somebody do on stage for 5 minutes to grab the attention of that people. And the music is one big factor. If anything, it's the biggest, because if you use shit music, people are not going to be interested in what you're doing. If you're doing a competition where you have to talk and you can't talk properly, people are not going to be interested in what you're doing. So the sound and the music aspect was always a big factor for me to use good music, which one, people may have never heard before, or two, people wouldn't expect to be used in a competition.
Okay, great point. Actually, yeah, music is very important. Is I've seen somewhere I've seen some movie about music in movies, and they show some scary scene and put some music which is not scary, and it's different. I mean, so
Completely.
music is also important in shows and in performances, especially in flair bartending. Definitely, even if in mixology it could play a big role, because when you put the music that is balanced with the cocktail you're making and the story, so it really engages people much more.
I think the difficulty with flair competitions, especially, and when it comes to cocktail competitions a little bit, is that there is a certain level of entertainment that you should be bringing, I believe, whichever kind of competition it is.
Oh.
And with flair bartending competitions, again, there's a high percentage of people who are not showmen or showwomen. I was not a showman or I was not a showwoman, definitely, but I was not a showman when I started. I had to practice and learn how to do all that stuff, how to
Definitely
get the music together. I had to learn how to be a show person, how to perform a show and entertain people. And I think a lot, 99% of people, especially in flair, do not think about that for a second. All they're worrying about is the moves that they're performing and look at my new move. And I said, it doesn't matter if you have the greatest move in the world. If you don't present that move correctly, no one gives a shit.
very true.
But
very understandable.
if you have a simple move and you present it amazingly well, everybody's going to pay attention. And this is one thing that Nicholas and John did extremely well with his flair. He's not to say his moves were easy; they were not. But he had some very smart moves. The spoon, what was the thing? The spoon with the glass on it.
Yeah,
Everybody does this now.
I know Nicholas as well. I remember one guy from Roadhouse. It was like long time ago when I was seeing those videos. I remember one guy. I still remember. I don't remember his name. Maybe you will see me. But it was one guy who was. I think he was a good showman. He was a bit bigger guy, but he can do flair so fast. And what that's where you will probably remember him because
Neil Lowry.
The guy who made Mojito with dildo.
Yes, his name is Neil Lowry.
Neil Larry? Okay, I will write it. Neil Larry?
Yeah, NEILLOWREY.
Can you spell it a little bit slower?
Sure. It's NEIL.
Okay.
and then Lowry is Lowry.
Okay. R E. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And he was, you've seen people, there's some people who flare very fast today, but I've never ever seen anybody since Neil Lowry flare faster than him.
No, he
No
was
way.
like real, and he was very funny and like entertaining. I was still stayed in my mind, you know.
Exactly.
even,
And then,
even it was like 10 years ago, probably when I've seen that. So
and then the thing with Neil is that he had some crazy moves. He had like a helicopter move on his head. He did some crazy, crazy moves. He didn't have the most difficult flare in the world. He had some difficult moves, but he flared so fast that you didn't care what he did. You just wanted to see him go faster and faster and faster.
yeah, it's
And
also
it
interesting.
was, I mean, there's a few videos that are still online, I think, where you can see him flare on YouTube. But some people would watch him and think and think that the tape is in fast forward. I say tape because back then we didn't have DVDs or the internet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Performance is very important. Thank you, Tom, for these insights. And now, one more important question and a couple more easy questions. You know, it's about this situation. What's happening now in the world? We talked a bit before the podcast, but the main question was I would like to ask you. You know, world changed a lot. You know, and I believe personally that it will never come back to where it was. It will just be at some different norm, just because world is changing always, and it's evolution. So how do you think it will touch bartending, hospitality? Maybe let's concentrate more on bartending industry. How do you think it will change it already when it will become kind of new norm? Because now it's some process. We know, I don't know. So if you thought about that, if you never thought about that, maybe it was too busy, so it's okay. But if you thought about that, some philosophical ideas maybe or something, how you just believe it will be a new norm, how new bartenders will look like, if there will be at all, maybe just to go cocktails and
Well, I think everybody is talking about this new normal, and the world being completely different. And I think we need to remember that the world is constantly changing anyway. I just think this has catapulted things forward very, very quickly in a short space of time. And the new normal or the new norm, we would have got to something different eventually. It's just because of this apparent pandemic. Sorry if that's contradictory for anybody. It's then pushed things to a direction which we weren't expecting, or we're now becoming more used to. In terms of how it's going to affect the bartending industry is really hard to predict, I think. I mean, honestly, I think we will go back to not the same as what we had, but we will have cocktail bars open, nightclubs, and everything else we will come back. I don't think as much as what we've had in the past, but we have to remember that alcohol is one of the few drugs that governments tax and make money on, and they make a lot of money on it. And they're not going to let that money just go away. In the UK alone, they've already given away probably close to 500 billion pounds to the UK citizens, and they got to get that money back somehow. I mean, they'll never get it back. All money is debt at the end of the day, but they won't. I don't believe that they will allow so many cocktail bars, nightclubs, restaurants, and things like this to just disappear, because the entertainment and hospitality sector brings so much money into a country that people will find a way around. If something does happen which stops these kind of things from happening, people will find a way around it, whether it be opening up bars in their home in some way, shape, or form, whether it be prohibition style and be completely illegal, bars and nightclubs and restaurants.
Back again. Speakeasies back again. Real speakeasies, I mean.
Exactly. I mean, in the UK now, I am positive that there's probably some illegal parties and raves. Well, there is. illegal parties and raves happening all the time, because you cannot stop the nature. You cannot stop humans wanting to be with one another. It's just a natural instinct that we want to enjoy each other's company and go out and enjoy ourselves and dance and sing and be entertained. And I can't see the bartending world and the bars changing so much. Perhaps the details will change. People will become more conscious about health and safety, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah,
You
why
know,
not? True.
people have never washed their hands so much in all of their life, and I'm like, thank you very much. Finally, people are washing their hands. Why
Yeah,
did it why did it take a global pandemic for people to understand how to wash their hands correctly? So there is some good things which come of it, and I hope that cleanliness and tidiness and looking after the planet and that kind of thing will change. I think bars will look at trying to earn more money in different ways, and that will be home cocktails, home bars, home visits, perhaps, cocktails in a box. All this kind of stuff is already happening and will already grow more and more, I believe.
yeah, it is.
But I think we will. I think we will go back to what we had. I mean, if we look at the Spanish flu in 1918, that was in a way similar to what is happening now, if not a carbon copy.
Yeah,
I think there was another pandemic in 1818. Every 100 years, I was told that there's a pandemic. So get ready in 2120.
yeah, that's true. I just had a, sorry for beating you in the conversation. I just had a podcast last week with Jared Brown, a cocktail historian, and the guy like very very much into this industry for a very long time. And he also told me that he was reading newspapers from those times, and he say like if you don't pay attention to the years, so it's the same what is written now on the newspapers. So exactly what you're saying now, and a second person in a row saying that, so might be some message.
If you look, the 1920s in the UK alone, I think was known as the Roaring Twenties, because you imagine 2 years, 1918 till 1920, where they had this Spanish flu pandemic where the same thing is happening now. Hundreds or millions of people are dying. Livelihoods were lost, businesses were lost, things happened, and it was detrimental to the world. They sorted it out. I don't know how they sorted it out, and everyone's like, hallelujah, we've been locked away for 2 years. Let's go spend some money and party our asses off.
Yeah.
So get ready. Maybe not 2021, but 2022. I do believe that the world is just going to lose its shit, and people are just going to start spending their money like it's going to end tomorrow. There's obviously going to be those people who are going to be constantly scared that they're going to die from this virus again or whatever. And there's going to be a lot of bars and a lot of restaurants lost until this happens. But I think if people get prepared for the onslaught of spending and parties and craziness, which is going to happen in the 2020s, 2021, 22, perhaps, just my theory. So I believe bars will come back to how they are, and there'll be some new ideas for sure, where you can, I don't know, you sit in a bubble, or medical bars, hospital bars, where you get completely disinfected before you go in, Breaking Bad bars. There's one in London already. There'll be more of those sort of styles where you get dressed up in a full radioactive suit of some description. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. It will be a kind of entertainment, vodka spraying from the up, I was thinking, vodka party with spring vodka, and, virus couldn't survive. Everything is cool.
It's only a matter of time until the first COVID bar opens. I guarantee.
Sure.
I'll tell you a quick story. There's I think it's 2 or 3 bars in Tokyo called Gas Panic. Now, these bars are named after the terrorist attacks which happened in Tokyo. I can't remember the year when they happened, but there was a in the metro system of Tokyo, I think it was. If I've got this information wrong to anyone watching, please tell us in the comments exactly how it works. But there were these terrorist attacks which involved gas bombs of some description, and hence somebody opened a bar called Gas Panic. I mean, how horrible is that? But these are just crazy nightclub bars where people go and party their ass off. So it's only a matter of time until somebody opens a bar called COVID Cure, COVID something, Corona Bar or something crazy like this, because they'll just theme it to do with this crazy pandemic. And if somebody hasn't thought about doing it, you're welcome. There's the idea.
Yeah, I believe it, really. Some people, when everything will end, some people will miss that, because people just get used, and that will be a place to get back, to remember to be 6 feet or like 2 meters apart and everything, like things. Yeah. Just and to bring to bring their kids, grown-up kids, to show that's how we used to live for some time, kind of that
craziness.
Yeah. We see we got some ideas, Okay, Tom, so a couple easy questions, for finishing our podcast. What's your favorite category of drinks?
Do you know what? Recently, I've been really enjoying frozen cocktails.
Frozen cocktails? But I mean, spirit category I had in mind. Which spirit category?
It has to be rum.
Rum?
Has to be rum, yeah. Rum is just an easy one. It's extremely diverse. It's sweeter than the rest. And I enjoy it. Vodka, I'm sorry, I find kind of boring. Sorry to all the vodka fans out there. But I haven't explored it enough. So that's why I'm not so into it. Gin, fucking everybody loves gin. Gin is the one which annoys me the most because
it's a revival now.
Sorry?
It's a gin revival now. Yeah, before pandemic for sure.
It's mental because it's all about marketing. Nobody really likes gin. It's all about marketing and sugar. And what I mean by that is when I started doing events many years ago, we'd have 3 or 4 cocktails on the menu. And there'll be a vodka cocktail, there'll be a rum cocktail, maybe 2 vodka cocktails, a rum cocktail, and a gin cocktail. Mm-hmm. Maybe a margarita as well, because that's what everybody knew back then. The gin cocktail never went. People are like, vodka, rum, gin, vodka, rum, vodka, rum, maybe tequila. Okay. The gin one? No, don't like gin. Don't like gin. The gin cocktail would only go when all the other stuff had been drunk and there was no vodka, rum, or tequila left. I love gin and orange juice. Now you put your hand up in a crowd of people who likes gin. I love gin. I'm like, you don't. You just love marketing, and now you love gin. Basically, this is my anyway. And obviously, there's a million different gins coming out on the market these days, which are now developing their tastes so that people like them more.
Yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, they are adapting to the taste.
Like pink gins and purple gins and changing color gins, which are all very delicious. I love gin as well. But it just makes me laugh how clever marketing can be to make people love gin. But rum definitely, and I am getting into Scotch as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know that much about Scotch, but I'm starting to generate a better palate to understand it so that I can enjoy Scotch in a much better way. But rum, to answer it quickly.
All right, cool. I love rum too. I just found out recently that my favorite category is cachaça. And cachaça is kind of rum as well. I mean, just a bit different, and so that was also an amazing drink. All right, Tom, and you said frozen cocktails. So that would have been my next question. What's your favorite drink? So you more or less you already answered it, like frozen drink. So it's like frozen daiquiri or frozen margarita more, or.
Well, I mean, it's not entirely true, but I've always been somebody to go against the grain, so to speak. to go against. And frozen cocktails have a bad reputation. People think of TGI Fridays, 1980s, sitting by the pool, pina colada, strawberry daiquiri. And I'm like, well, frozen cocktails are cocktails too. You know, it's like celebrities are humans too. Frozen cocktails are cocktails too, whether people like it or not. And I think this is that modesty about being a great bartender. I believe that a lot of people miss is that you can still have a great drink, which is a frozen drink. Okay, you're not going to get all the delicate flavors that you'd get in a boozy cocktail, or perhaps in a stir drink or a shaken drink, perhaps. But you can still get some different flavors and some different textures for sure through frozen drinks. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's my favorite category of cocktail, but it's something which I like to explore a little bit sometimes. I like to play around with. I like to create that cheesy frozen drink occasionally, just to piss people off sometimes as well, because some people just really hate it. Like I did a video on a Negroni the other day, and it was a frozen Negroni. Oof.
Oh.
The London bar scene, it was like I'd just thrown a nuclear bomb into the London bar scene, because they're like, you cannot do this to the Negroni. I'm like, why not? It's only a cocktail, man. We're not rocket scientists. We're not, saving the world from a global
kind of.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But, we are glorified drug dealers that tax what we're selling and give it to the government.
True.
It's basically what we're doing. And a lot of people seem to forget that. So playing around with cocktails and doing frozen drinks, I like to do. But I don't know. I don't really have a favorite category of cocktail or genre of cocktail. I like to play around with all of them. But frozen ones are definitely the most fun to explore sometimes.
Yeah, I can hear that. That's nice. Okay, Tom. And for the final question, I would like to ask you, you already achieved a lot, actually, a lot, great success in this industry, I mean, and in general. So I would like to ask you, how do you see yourself? What is your dream? What's your goal? What's your, let's say, in 10 years? How do you see yourself in 10 years? What would you like to accomplish? Or, I don't know, I just giving you some ideas, but to answer this question, just I'm talking more about the industry, not about personal life, but if it's very connected, yeah, it's share how you want. So what's that?
It's a tough one as well. It's I would love to see people being more open with newer bartenders. I'd love to see this level of arrogance that we have in our industry diminish a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've gone on about it a little bit, but I do see it a lot, and I see it within myself a lot, and I try to get rid of it as much as I can, and to see where do I see myself within that, in the whole grand scheme of things. Like you said, I mean, it's not necessarily about my own personal growth, but it's hard to say, really. My goal within the industry is to try and make people smile and have fun. As I said on the previous question, we're not saving lives here. We're not rocket scientists. We're not brain surgeons or anything like this. We're glorified drug dealers. And I think a lot of people would need to remember that. And going out and having a good cocktail or going to a good cocktail bar is all about having a bit of entertainment, a bit of an experience, and tasting something nice. It's not about anything other than that, really. So it would be great to see people bring in a bit more customer service to what they're doing behind the bar. It's great to see people really get creative with what they're doing and bring a different service or a different experience and different types of cocktails. And yeah, I'd love to see more of that come through in the bartending industry. I'd love to see more people enjoying themselves when they're making drinks or flaring or being behind the bar. There's a lot of seriousness and a lot of complete bullshit, and it's unnecessary. All that does is push people away from the industry and not bring them in closer. And I'm not saying we all have to be woo, have a lot of fun, because that isn't everybody's cup of tea either. But we all like to be happy. I think that's a given. Anybody who says otherwise is complete mental. Sorry. But we all want to be happy. We all want to have a nice time. We all want to enjoy ourselves and enjoy good drinks. And that's what we should be focusing towards. That should be our main goal as a bartending community, as a flair bartending community. And the only way we're going to do that is to share our experiences, to share our knowledge with one another, to help one another, to support each other, and to push one another to do good things, encourage each other to grow something new, to grow something, a different type of bar, a different cocktail, and not to pull people back or to intimidate others with our supreme level of skill or knowledge or whatever it may be. So I don't know if we'll ever get there, because everything is a competition these days. But I think,
I say true as well. It's the world is complicated, gets because it's a big competition as well. But, so I don't want to beat you in the talking.
No, I was getting to the end of it. It's I don't know if we'll ever get to a point of supreme happiness, but at least we can try and support one another, help each other, especially during these tough times. There's a lot of people going through a lot of shit and having a lot of problems with everything that's going on. People that I've known, people that have worked for me who now sadly don't. And I know a lot of people are going through a lot of shit. So the more we can do to try and help or support others, it may not be somebody directly in your circle of life or friends or whatever, but show support and respect and to try and bring a little bit of happiness to what we're doing, I think will only help us get through this current circumstance in the world, and will only help grow the industry of bartending and cocktail bars a lot more in the future.
Great. Thank you, Tom, for sharing your insights and your thoughts and your story and everything we talked today. It was really, really interesting and inspiring. And 300, I still 300. Wow, that's such a huge number. That's great. It's very inspiring, and it really shows, what dedication you have to put if you want to achieve success.
Can I just say something about that number 300? I think it's about 320, whatever it was. Just to go back, and this is a bit of advice to people who hopefully may have got this far in the podcast or not. I only achieved what I achieved because I entered 300 competitions. If I had stopped at my first year where I'd entered 10 competitions, I would have won 10% of the competitions. I entered 300 competitions. I won about 82, which is just under a third of the competitions that I entered. So, it was essentially a numbers game for me. And I think Michael Jordan even said it. He goes, I won 100 times. I failed 1,000 times, or something like this.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people seem to forget that these days. If you're going to be competing and want to do cocktail competitions, flair bartending, or anything in terms of competing, I only got better at competitions by doing more competitions. Full stop. As I said, I wasn't a showman. I didn't know how to make music. I learned that by doing 300 competitions. By my 10th competition, I still didn't know shit. So if people want to improve, I suppose that helps answer one of the questions earlier. It's by doing more competitions, because those competitions will help you practice for the next one and for the next one and for the next one and for the next one. Flair practice helps you get better at flair. Competition practice helps you get better at competitions. So really, I'm absolutely really shit at what I do. I just did it a lot. That was all.
So it's very important, and that's what I also believe brings a great success, by practicing, doing. So that was really very inspirational and very great conversation, and all your insights, all your ideas, all what we talked. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed our 1 hour podcast. It went so fast, and there could be many more questions, but I guess for this time it will be enough. But maybe for some other, we will do more podcasts. So thank you, Tom, very much. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for watching this podcast. And if you have any questions, just comment below. I will try to answer, and I will try to ask Tom and then answer if I won't know what to answer. Like it, please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to bring this podcast to once a week to inspire you to become better bartenders, better people, to grow more and to achieve more success in what you are doing. And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Tom, once more. And see you in next podcast. Bye.
Thank you so much, man. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.